Peace, everybody. Welcome back to the Blu Alchemist Podcast. Today, we're stepping into the shadows of Jordan Peele's Out There Screaming, an anthology of new Black horror stories. This isn't just about monsters in the dark. It's about the monsters in our history, our communities, and sometimes even in ourselves. I'll be honest, I feel connected to these stories. They're thought-provoking, forward-thinking, and carry very deep messages. Some of them made me stop and reflect on how horror can speak to truth in ways other genres can't. And honestly, this collection feels so powerful, it could easily be adapted into a series like Black Mirror. Unsettling, sharp, and unforgettable. So I'm going to walk you through a few stories that hit me deep, sharing not just what happens, but how they feel. So sit back and let's step into the darkness together. Story 1, Reckless Eyeballing by N.K. Jemisin. This story follows Noble Washington, a Black military veteran, riding on a train. He's weary, alert, always watching his back. On this ride, he encounters a young Black girl, mysterious with a sense of power about her. There's something about her presence that feels intentional, as if she's chosen him for a purpose he doesn't yet understand. But soon after, the ugliness of racism shows itself. White men confront him with violence and hatred. The real horror here isn't just supernatural. It's the ever-present threat of racist violence. The girl stays close, guiding him until they arrive at a house. And there, Noble sees something unbelievable. A monster-like figure standing guard at the door. A being that looks terrifying, dangerous, inhuman. Yet here's the heart of the story. Noble is still more afraid of the racist men than the creature guarding that house. That moment says everything. Because sometimes, the monsters we know, the ones wearing human faces, are far scarier than anything supernatural waiting behind a door. And that's why this story connects so deeply to the writer. Both remind us that racism itself is the ultimate horror, one that overshadows even the most terrifying creatures of myth or magic. Speaking of which, let's talk about another story of the road, of two sisters holding on to each other while the unknown rides with them. Story 2, The Rider by Tananarive Due. Now, if I said the person's name wrong, I'm sorry, but Tananarive Due. Imagine the 1960s, deep in the South. Two sisters are on a bus, traveling as part of the Freedom Riders, activists challenging segregation. The road is tense, and they know the risk. Mobs waiting at small towns, burning buses, white men with guns, fists, and hate. Every stop could be their last. As they sit close together, clutching onto each other for strength, a strange figure appears. Not a man, not exactly. Something otherworldly. He is the rider. His presence, is unsettling. Eyes too sharp. Movements not quite human. He doesn't speak much, but his silence feels heavy, like he knows something they don't. Then the bus slows. Outside, a mob of angry white men gathers, shouting, waiting. You can almost hear the fist against the windows, the scrape of fire against the night. And in that moment, the sisters realize they are more afraid of the mob than of the rider. The mob is certain danger. The rider is uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, he's way out. Now, this story was crazy because there's something odd about the character. I like how the author described the character. It was like he was made out of leaves of some sort and some type of mud, like he came from a tree monster of some sort. So it's really interesting how she described the rider that was on the bus, and also the reaction of the bus driver that was driving the bus, because the rider had some powers. But I'm not going to give away the story because somebody probably didn't read this yet. But all I got to say is that rider had some powers and he was from somewhere else. So this story paired with reckless eyeballing creates a theme across the anthology. The horror of racism is so overwhelming that even when monsters are standing before us, the human ones feel worse. And the theme continues. Communities and families facing horrors that blur the line between the supernatural and the painfully real. Story 3, The Norwood Trouble by Morris Brodus. In Norwood, the night doesn't bring peace. It brings fire. The clan rides through, hooded and hateful, determined to break the spirit of the black families who lived there. This isn't just a scary story. This is rooted in real history, in raids that left families terrified, homes destroyed, lives stolen. But Brodus adds something else: power. The people of Norwood have ancestral knowledge, spells, protection, magic passed down from elders who knew how to fight darkness, both spiritual and physical. When the mob comes, the community gathers, chanting, preparing. They know they can't rely on the police. They can only rely on each other. Of course, power has a price. Magic always asks for something in return, and the trouble in Norwood isn't just the mob. It's the question of how much you're willing to give or lose to protect what's yours. Yeah, I think this story is pretty interesting because it's like the neighborhood, the black people in the neighborhood would go to this particular orchard and worship and stuff like that. And it talks about the lines between religion and just reaching to your ancestors for protection. But it does make you wonder, what else do you have to give in return to have the ancestors protect you? But the story didn't really allude to much of that as far as what I got from it. But I do know that they are protected, and at that moment they were protected. And it was because of their chanting and their working together. And even though the pastor was kind of nervous about that because he didn't believe in it, he thought that that was going against God, he still had to go along with it to protect the community. And so I thought that was amazing. So that was, and this story felt heavy but powerful. It reminded me that horror isn't only about fear, it's also about resistance. It's about saying, we've been through worse and we'll fight through this too. Where Norwood shows us collective power, the next story takes us into the lives of two individuals who fight monsters head on. Siblings who made it their business to hunt what others run from. This story is story 4. This is Eye and Tooth by Rebecca Ronhorst. Zelda and Atticus, brother and sister, professional monster hunters. They move through the world like detectives, called in when things get too strange for anyone else to handle. Now, one particular night, on a rainy night, when they arrived at a house filled with dolls, looks like another job. Okay, they've seen weird houses before. They've seen weird things. Until they realize those dolls may not just be dolls. They're watching. Their tiny glass eyes follow you. Their mouths open wider than they should. And when the teeth start showing, it's too late. Well, here's the thing. The dolls were creepy. But what's the most creepy thing is what's really hiding. And the lady that called them there to the house to see what the noise was and stuff, it's like, what's really going on here? It was like she called and kind of told on herself, but she didn't know that Zelda and Atticus were tapped in and they work off of each other's powers. Zelda was like the muscle, the monster, and Atticus is like the seer, and they work together and see things. And in this case, Zelda I can tell you the story, but cracked a case. And it's really deep because these dolls, or let's say one doll in particular, isn't just a doll. The imagery here is unforgettable. Eyes where they don't belong, teeth growing in places that make your skin crawl. Ronhorst knows how to take something familiar, something almost innocent, and twist it until it makes you shiver. What I loved is how the siblings balance each other. One is more cautious, the other is more reckless. But together they're a force. It almost feels like the pilot of a show you'd binge watch, following them from one hunted case to the next. The story is equal parts terrifying and thrilling. One thing I could say about this story is that there's definitely a twist in it. You really didn't know where it was going to go. And then towards the end, you're like, oh, that's what's up. That's what's going on. And all I got to say is to my werewolf lovers, you're going to kind of think of a werewolf in this situation. And actually, this could actually be a real show where there's a real Zelda and Atticus out here in these streets, and the show on Showtime or something like that, HBO, and they're out here going to people's houses that's calling in for help with the supernatural. I mean, that would be a good show, y'all. I mean, that story was really good. But while Zelda and Atticus choose to chase monsters, sometimes monsters come from inside the house and even from people we should trust most. So that leads us to story 5, Hide and Seek by Djèlí Clark. We all remember it. Hide and seek. The thrill of finding the perfect hiding spot. Holding your breath as footsteps come closer. The giggles you try to hold in. It's supposed to be fun, safe. But in this story, safety is an illusion. A mother's drug use stirs something she doesn't understand. A magic deep in her bloodline that does need like being disturbed. Each time she uses the magic, twists her, warps her until she isn't fully human anymore. She becomes the thing her children fear, a monster inside their own home. So when the kids play hide and seek, they're not just hiding for fun, they're hiding for their lives because their seeker isn't a friend or a sibling, it's their mother. Twisted into something that hunts them through the house. The game becomes survival and every corner of their childhood home feels like a trap. That's what makes this story so chilling. Horror isn't out in the woods or in a haunted graveyard. It's in the living room, the bedroom, right where you should feel safest. Clark blends addiction, trauma, and folklore into a story that makes you ask, what if the person meant to protect you becomes the monster you must escape? And I think this is interesting because I've read stories where, I watched one movie one time and the mother had to take care of her son, which turned into a werewolf. And so she's trying to take care of her son and also protect herself at the same time and feed him and take care of him. And there's other shows like that. I just can't remember the name of all the shows, but it's very interesting. In this story, it's definitely a different scary twist. Whereas if you mess around, if you're magical and you dim your magic with addiction, then you can get into some trouble. And I thought that was real deep, and I thought it was a cool way to write this story. But not all monsters come from our bloodline. Some creep up from the shadows of desire itself, like the urge to keep moving, no matter the cost. That takes us to story 6, Wandering Devil by Cadwell Turnbull. I can say this one is probably my number one favorite here. Now here's a story that feels almost quiet at first, but it lingers. A man feels the call to wander, to leave his home, his family, just keep moving. And I always say, here's my quote, no matter where you go, there you go. That's just my saying. At first, it feels like restlessness, like wanderlust. But the more he listens to that call, the more dangerous it becomes. Because this isn't just travel. It's a devil pulling at him. A spirit of endless motion that doesn't let go once it's inside you. The further it goes, the more he loses. Relationships crumble. His sense of self slips away. He can't stop moving, even when he wants to. Even when he doesn't want to, really. But also, I think probably even when he wants to. I think it's both. What struck me here is the metaphor. The wandering devil is about temptation, about that voice that whispers, leave it all behind. For some of us, it's addiction. For others, it's self-sabotage. But Turnbull makes it literal. The devil is real, and once it hooks into you, it's almost impossible to shake. Now, I can say that in this story, the character had a choice. Like, I feel like he could have moved on, and he had a choice. There was a part where they said, hey, if you run again, you're going to sink into the floor. And boy, oh boy, did he sink into the floor. But you got to read it to understand the whole story behind how it all worked out and how it all happened. And just when you think horror is all about running or fighting, another story reminds us that sometimes the scariest place is the one that feels the safest. So story 7 is called Your Happy Place by Terrence Taylor. This one took horror in a chillingly modern direction. Imagine technology so advanced it promises to give prisoners a better fate than death. Instead of execution, their souls are uploaded into a digital paradise, their so-called happiness. Now, this don't sound like Black Mirror. I don't know what to tell you. But here's the horror. Once you're in, you can't leave. Your body may be gone, like you in a sunken place, but your consciousness is trapped. At first, the simulation feels like heaven, but slowly the cracks show. Time stretches strangely, memories blur, and the happy place becomes more like a prison of the mind. An eternity of false comfort with no escape. Taylor weaves together AI, punishment, and morality. Is it justice to trap someone's soul forever, even if the world thinks it's mercy? Or is it a new kind of eternal torture? The story forces us to think about the dangers of technology when it pretends to be compassion, but really hides control. Now, here's my thing. I think AI is controlled by human. And this particular story, the person that is putting these, well, actually, it's prisoners that are actually getting caught into this happy place. And these are prisoners that are going to be in jail for life. So to them, to the man that's running the business that started the software for the jail and for the big companies, he thinks, well, they're going to die anyway. So why not put their consciousness in this virtual reality and have them work until they bleed? They don't know what they're doing. They stuck in here forever. But I still think that's not good. It's still a form of slavery. It's sad because some people, they're stuck in this reality, but could it be good too? I don't know. I mean, they think that they're in a happy place. They literally think the main character really thinks that he is with his wife and his daughter again, but he's really not. But that's his happy place, but he's stuck in jail for life, and he's doing labor as a robot, if you will. So that's really creepy. Sounds like something that can happen in real life. But from restless doubles to riders in the night, from haunted homes to twisted safe spaces, each of these stories remind us that horror takes many forms, but they all leave their mark. So here's what I'm left with after these stories. Horror isn't just about being scared. It's about truth. For Black writers, horror is a way to face history, to keep folklore alive, and to remind us of the strength it takes to survive. Rather, it's Noble Washington staring down racists while a monster guards the house, two sisters gripping each other's hands on a bus while a rider watches, a community in Norwood, a pair of monster-hunting siblings, children hiding from their own mother, a man trapped by a devil that won't let him rest, or a soul in prison in a digital paradise that turns into hell. Horror shows us both the monsters we fear and the power we carry to face them. And let me just say this. I feel connected to these stories. They were thought-provoking, forward-thinking, and carried very deep messages. They didn't just scare me. They made me reflect, question, and imagine what horror can be when it digs into history and the future at the same time. Honestly, this collection deserves to be made into a series like Black Mirror. Now, I want to leave you with a question, a little, to sit with until next time. Would you rather be trapped on that bus with the writer or stuck outside, face to face with the mob, waiting in the dark? Think about it and let me know what you choose. Until next time, stay curious and stay real. Peace.